I think there's a narrative for women just like me too, who are ready for love or who never thought they would find love. And finally, they're allowing they're opening up their heart and allowing themselves to experience. I think there's a missing narrative in this like dating conversation. And when I was looking for that voice to find comfort in what I was experiencing, I couldn't find it. So just like any other entrepreneur, if you can't find something, be the voice and create it.
Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What is a blueprint breaker? If you live your life outside the typical traditional lifestyle blueprint, you are a blueprint breaker. We are here to start a conversation, to assemble resources, and to build a community. This podcast is for empowered women in midlife and beyond who are preparing for a powerful next era of life. My name is Amy A. Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for our conversations. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. To stay connected, up to date, and to receive all of our free resources and gifts along the way, join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Get ready for a glow up. In today's conversation, where I sit down and talk with my coach and mentor, Glo Atanmo, you are going to be inspired to glow up your life, glow up your business, glow up your love, all of it. You're going to be filled with inspiration, ideas, energy, light. We cover a lot of ground. So this episode is a little bit on the longer side, and that's because we're covering decades of Glo's work. And we talk about how she's become an international speaker, thought leader, seven-figure business owner. You will get to see her ever-curious, multi-passionate approach. And she's definitely a role model for having an infinite number of ways to do life. We also dive into her latest adventure. She's working with her partner, her life partner, Stefan, and they're building a partnership and a life. And this is after years of her being a solo digital creator. I will share with you in this episode, I talk a little bit about my skepticism about her romantic news. So we talk through that. And we talk about the program that she and Stefan have recently launched, really around helping people to find their own financial, location, and time freedom. Glo's bio is a long list of accolades. She's been a travel writer, a blogger, a graphic designer. She is a creative entrepreneur who's traveled to more than 90 countries across 7 continents. Her travel blog, The Blog Abroad, has been featured in publications like Ebony Magazine and Huffington Post. As a speaker, a dynamic motivational speaker, she's appeared on huge stages worldwide with Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Jenna Kutcher, just to name a few. She's also been featured in Forbes, Oprah Magazine, Condé Nast, Essence, BuzzFeed, and more. And now she is a role model for living a full, well-rounded life and really helping women like you and I, strong, ambitious women, helping them to find love. So if you are like me and you have given up on finding a partner, this episode will actually have you reconsidering your position. It's never too late for a new adventure. So I hope you enjoy. Hello, Glo. It's so good to see you. Welcome to Blueprint Breakers.
Thank you, Amy, so much. I'm stoked to be here. And literally, if this title of your podcast couldn't be a more perfect just phrase of how I've lived my life. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yes. And that's why, I was thrilled as I was working up the courage to ask you to be a guest on the podcast, you offered, like, just when I was, about to, and I was like, oh, that is so awesome. So thank you. Thank you. One of the many reasons why I follow you and why I chose you as a coach and why I wanted you on this podcast is I see that you are multi-passionate. Like, you have lived your life. You've evolved and changed and pivoted and shifted as you want to. And yes. I love that. So
Yes.
I kind of really wanted to dive into that today.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And I
Okay.
appreciate, I mean, I literally don't offer to many people, but like when I see someone doing something so bold and courageous, I'm like, how can I like amplify this? Because it's so
Oh,
beautiful. And I'm so proud of just like how much you've grown over the months, but
thank
just like
you.
the new direction that you're continuing to take. It's beautiful to witness.
Thank you. That
Of
means a
course.
lot.
Yes.
Well, we know you're a blueprint breaker.
Yes.
That's for sure. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, what has brought you to where you are now, just being the impactful, creative entrepreneur that you are.
Yeah, and I always have these different versions. So I'm like, should I give the 1 minute version, the 5 minute version, the half hour version? But no, I'll say this. I've known since 11 years old that I'm different. I don't know why, and I don't know what to do with it. Like I never fit in with my classmates. I never felt like I could relate to what people were talking about at 11 years old. And I always was curious. And I was like, oh, there's something different. There's something deeper. I was that annoying kid that asked the teacher multiple questions because I didn't understand. And I was like, well, but why? But why? But why? I was always that person. And I leaned into it. And instead of trying to chase like trends and find friends through what teenagers do when
Yeah.
you're trying to find yourself, I went to the internet and I tried to create a corner of a corner of the internet that allowed me to express myself. And so I started my first blog at 11 years old as a way to find connection and find other ways to express myself since I wasn't finding connection in real life. And I feel like that opened me up to a world of possibility because I mean, now 11-year-olds, I mean, kids have access to the internet at 5,
Right, right.
so it's nothing now. But yeah, back in 2001, that was like the dot-com boom was still
Yeah.
very fresh and people couldn't understand what this internet world was going to do. So I feel like since then, I've always known that like this traditional career path, this idea of working 60 years and then, or 40 years, doing the same thing to hope to retire after 60, like none of it was making sense. And I
Mhm.
felt bad for questioning why I opted out very early. And I felt bad for questioning why so many people would opt into this. And I'm like,
Mm.
it's all one big scam. Like, what are we really doing here? Like
Right.
life is, and here's the thing, I want to be very mindful in saying not everyone is meant to live this crazy, colorful, passionate, entrepreneurial life. Like 9-to-5ers exist in many capacities in very important roles. And
Right.
so it's not to downplay the significance of anyone with a 9-to-5 job, but I think it's to upplay and give more credibility to the people who chose a path that doesn't make sense.
Yes. Yes,
I guess, yeah.
exactly.
So I guess long story short, I graduated college, booked a one-way ticket to Europe, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I have $500 of graduation money to stretch. So, like,
Wow.
but it's like there was no plan B. It's like I knew that I would figure something out, but there wasn't, if you operate with like, well, I can always call my mom and I can call my sister. If you operate with a bailout plan, you're never fully investing into what you really want. And so
Uh-huh.
I say I was willing to sleep on a park bench, to sleep on a beach, in a public beach at night, because I couldn't afford, I had nothing left. Pockets were empty. And I was like, okay, Glo, this is where you're at, and of course, lots of tears, lots of emotion, lots of fear. Like, what am I doing? Like, did I fail? Like, what's going on? But I was building as I was going, and it was really hard to know what was ahead because I was pioneering in a lane that didn't yet have rules. And
Hmm.
before it was even influencer marketing, there was just like content creation. And I had been creating content since I was 11, not even knowing that it would be this booming industry that it is today. So I'm really glad that when I experienced failure, I let it fuel me and propel me to something that would almost like encourage me to keep going. And the people
Yeah.
that maybe never experience failure, it's almost a disservice because they don't realize how much failure builds their character.
And how much you learn from it each time. For
That,
sure.
that's
So
exactly.
you were okay. So you were freshly out of college. So 21, 22, right?
Yep.
And where did you buy the one-way ticket to?
The UK, so London, yeah.
Okay. And
London.
and and you didn't really know where it was going to go from there. Or
I,
I mean, did you know that you wanted to like go into blogging, or what was weren't really sure?
yeah,
What did that look like?
I built my travel blog a month before I booked the ticket because I had studied abroad the year prior. So I was like, okay, like I am obsessed with this idea that like the world feels accessible. And I'll be
Mhm.
very honest as well, as a Black woman, I never saw Black people travel for leisure. Like
Mhm.
usually when you see Black people travel, especially on the news, they were immigrants and they were traveling for survival. So this world of like, whoa, I could travel for leisure, but also for work. It was
Mhm.
opened up to me when I studied abroad, and I made these incredible friends around the world. And all of a sudden, I found myself unlearning and undoing so much of what I said to be true. The world is this way. You think this way. You do it this way. And it's like there's no right or wrong. There's just different. And the different humbled me because I was like
Right.
operating out of this elitist, our way is the right way, Western mentality. And
Yeah.
I'm, whoa, like, no, this is really cool. And what else do I not know? And so my first thing that I chased, I think, was location freedom, because we think about the three buckets of freedom: location freedom, time freedom, financial freedom. I
Mhm.
was like, I just want to be anywhere in the world but the US. No offense. Grateful for my passport and my passport privilege. But I was like, the world is teaching me so much. I want to get back out there. So it was like, I was okay being broke as long as I was abroad, because I leaned on my skills of, okay, I have Wi-Fi, I have graphic design experience, I went to school for marketing and communications and media. So I would walk into hostels and I would say, hey, have you heard of Instagram? Like, it's this up and coming social media platform. And I really think, your hostel would benefit having an online presence, and I can run it for you. I can create content for you. I can even work reception for you. Like, that was probably very illegal. but I but here's the thing, I wasn't accepting money for it. I was just saying, I just need a bed.
Place to stay. Yeah.
Exactly. And that would take away my largest expense. And so if I can get my largest expenses covered, I can start to put more effort into my blog and monetize that way. And like
Mhm.
through ads and different sponsored content. So yeah, it became this like very unstable like grind. Just like every month was like month to month, I didn't know what I was making. And I think
Mhm.
first year of entrepreneurship, I think I made collectively, gosh, like 7 grand. And if you divide that by 12, like that's what is the math? Can I pull
Yeah,
up
yeah, I don't even know. Let's
that's
see, 7 grand. Well, by ten months would be 700. So it'd be less than that. So it'd be like
oh,
600 or
yeah,
whatever
right around
to
there.
live off of for the whole month.
583. Yeah, that's
583. Okay.
groceries, that's expenses, that's transportation, that's flights. Like
Wow.
I was covering all my own travels.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
it's $100, almost $100 a week that I was living off
Yeah.
of for
So you
probably.
were really resourceful and scrappy and just ready to go in it. And at the same time, I know, because I know a little more about your story, that this was not the lifestyle blueprint that you were handed. Like this was not, this is what you need to do to have a successful life, Glo, right? Right.
Absolutely
It,
not.
it was it was very much the opposite of that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think I always relied on my ability to figure things out. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have this mantra, especially this year, is that life favors the bold. And when you are obsessive about something in any direction, you will be rewarded for it. And it might not be, of course, it won't be immediate, but it might not look like the way you want. But I was starting to get my first touch of virality. I mean, a post would get 1,000 shares. I was like, oh, what does that mean for my blog? All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, my ad revenue, I was making maybe from ads like $75 a month. And then it was 500, then it was in the thousands. And I was like, okay, so more traffic means more ad revenue and then more visibility. And then brands would start to find me based on my blog, because my generic writing that I was just writing out of the passion, it was going viral and people were discovering me through that. So it was almost like once I got this new taste of whatever success looked like at the time, I started to say, ooh, okay, so there's more. Well, what comes after this? And I just got really curious.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that obviously through this time, there's a lot of uncertainty and not knowing from month to month and dealing with the fear. And you had to move past that. But how? How did you not let that make you give up, I guess? You just kept going.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of ego played into this because at the same time, I'm facing my fears and all of this uncertainty because we think of the six basic human needs. I was facing a lot of variety and uncertainty in my life, but there was this element of at least I feel unique. And again, that
Mm,
could be, ego talking, but I was on Facebook, of course, trying to keep up with friends, and everyone had the same cookie cutter, like you graduate college, you get a job, you get your first house, you buy a new car, you get married, you have your first kid. And it just all like you just copy and paste, across like
mhm.
all of my friends in college. And I was like, I was the one that when something you could be scrolling your news feed and the friends that I was also meeting who were chasing this dream, I would stop for their posts because I'm like, what are they up to now? Because I can assume like someone posts an
Yeah.
engagement photo. I know what the caption is going to be. Someone posts, a pregnancy announcement. I can assume what the caption is going to be. But someone posts a random photo in the middle of a Vietnamese village. Whoa, what's that?
Whoa.
And I'm like, oh, tell me more. And I became obsessive about this idea that people are stopping to read what's going on in my life because they've never seen someone who didn't know what they were doing figure it out on the way, at
Right.
least my friend circle and stuff.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
So you went into the travel blogging.
yeah, for
Um,
years.
and
I've been a travel blogger for
yeah.
years.
And then when did you then you evolved and changed and sort of honed your business even more. Tell me about what happened that showed you it was time to move in a different direction.
Here's the thing, Amy. You never know. You never know when
Mm,
it's actually time. You just have to trust your intuition to take a leap of faith and walk away from something that's guaranteed. And I
mm,
think the fear of, again, the uncertainty, I was willing to go back to it. And like, I'm like, okay, Glo, you lived here for many years and it was not fun. Like, stability is nice, stability is comfortable, but I also don't thrive in comfort. And so I felt like I reached the peak of what travel bloggers could do. I was featured in Oprah magazine. I was doing partnerships with Airbnb, Delta Airlines. I felt like, whoa, this is as good as it gets. And I feel like I can just keep riding this wave of like certainty. Like I've
uh-huh.
made it, you know, yeah, like I had enough accolades to feel like I could get any job I wanted. I could pitch any place and it was a guaranteed yes. And there's a level, again, that ego creeping in. I felt like I wasn't having to work hard anymore because things were so, I don't want to say easy, but it was easier. And there's nothing wrong with chasing ease, especially if you work so hard to get to it. But you
Mhm.
don't grow in ease, you don't
Mm,
evolve in ease. And I was really craving evolution. I was like, there's an untapped version of me, untapped potential still being birthed inside, but I'm not doing anything with it. And so I started dabbling with thought leadership, motivational speaking, and ultimately business coaching because I recognized even when I was a travel blogger, I was still doing consulting. I was still doing these like I would work like exclusively with brands. They would fly me into their headquarters to do a whole presentation on marketing and digital influence. And that was all very like impromptu, self-taught and like proactive because I'm like, oh, there's an opportunity here. Or I'd be at a conference and I'd recognize, I'm like, wow, their presentation really sucked. I wonder if they actually know what it's like to be on the other side. And I would just go pitch them in person. And
mhm,
I never saw anything as, oh, wow, that opportunity is for those people. I was like, oh, what would it be like to do that? And I would just go shoot my shot and try. And so I became like really curious about like what else could I do besides getting paid to travel, which again feels like you could ride that dream to retirement. Like
yeah,
it's a very comfortable life. But I
uh-huh.
also, from a human perspective, felt a disconnect because people were struggling, people weren't fulfilled with their lives. And here I was twirling in a dress on top of a mountain in Switzerland. It felt
Right.
very like
Oh,
disconnected. And I'm like, Glo, this is not you're more than this and you can go deeper than this.
mm,
Like the level of impact you want to have isn't going to be made through telling people to visit Switzerland for their summer holiday. So
Right.
I think I also felt that internal conviction of what would it be like to go even deeper and dive into the world of personal development and professional development and teach your best lessons from that.
Yeah. It definitely seems to be born out of your innate curiosity. I mean, you're definitely a lifelong learner. You know,
Yeah.
you read more books a week than I think anybody that I know. So, I mean, so it sounds like from that curiosity, you would see a problem or a need or an unanswered question, and you just had I don't know, the tenacity to just go challenge it or go ask about it, right? I mean, it seems like that has led to opening up new doors for you, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people's first question when they want to do something is, well, why would I do it and how would I do it? And I'm like, why would I not do it? And
Mhm.
how could I not do it?
Mm,
Like, I would just ask different questions. And I think
mhm,
I almost challenge myself to go for it because yes, we can let self-doubt win and we can let what society tells us is normal and this is the predictable path, this is the guaranteed path. And
mhm.
there's something about that that just never inspired me. And I call myself a creative entrepreneur, but what's interesting about that is I'm a creative first before I'm an entrepreneur, meaning that so much of my purpose and life fulfillment comes out of my creative expression. So if I'm
Mhm.
not finding ways to creatively express myself, I feel like I'm dying inside. And so if I'm in a state or a season where I'm not actively seeking inspiration from the world or from sources, books, podcasts, then I feel like, oh, like something's missing, and I'm
Right.
glad with that being my obsession.
Right. Yeah. Well, I shared in a previous episode a little bit about the book that you assigned to us, Creativity
Yes,
Sucks.
yes,
And
Phil Hansen.
yeah, yeah. And it reminded me that, I mean, I started as a creative. And
Yeah,
as I became an entrepreneur, I realized I stopped thinking of myself as a creative,
yeah.
and so I really want to thank you for that, for sort of replanting that seed in my mind around the creativity piece, because I think that is what fuels me as well. So I can relate to that. So
Absolutely. There is that stereotype of creatives who have that like mad scientist energy and they're like unreliable and they're all over the place and they need to feel called to create.
mhm,
And, so it can be a little bit airy fairy to be in the
mhm,
creative space. At the same time, like when creatives go so full into like entrepreneurship, they know that they need to build structure, organization,
mhm.
systems. And so out of our desire to have people take us seriously, we lose that childlike innocence and creativity that got us excited to start the business in the first place. So it's a tricky balance. And I
Yeah.
oscillate between the two because where I really thrive in creativity, I lack in like organizational structure. So it's always a balance. And I'm just constantly trying to give myself grace. Like, okay, Glo, today was a very masculine entrepreneurial day. It's okay that you can post on Instagram.
So that next season in your professional life, I mean,
Yes.
you continued to see great success with speaking on large stages and platforms, and your programs continued to grow. Uh, and you continue to reinvent and evolve. And before we get into like your new direction, I'm curious, how where does it come from to just be brave enough to pivot off of that? Like, aren't you afraid, or does it ever, I don't know, does it ever come up that, oh, well, if that's all going to go away, if I go in this direction, I'm going to lose all of that, and I'm not going to be able to continue to support myself. Those are the things that would be sort of circling in my head, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and those are absolutely valid fears. At the end of the day, I've lived below the poverty line for 90% of my life. So I would never want to go back, obviously, but I
Mhm,
think I would never put myself unintentionally in those circumstances again, just out of the desire to be, expressive in a new way. So I think for anyone else that is in a season where they feel like they need to pivot, I think it's important to give themselves a runway. And while they're exiting one area, like not to fully exit, but to give themselves just enough space to introduce the new thing. So there might be a period of 6 months where while I'm slowly decreasing the previous business, I'm introducing the new business or the new idea, the new concept, identity. And it's like within those 6 months, I can allow for transition to still make money on the back end from the thing that was stable while
Mhm.
introducing this concept, this new identity, testing new business programs, new ideas, new launches, new services. And then I can, like, by the 3 month mark, say, I feel good. Like, this already replaced my income, or like, this is, I feel good about this direction and I feel like I can continue to grow from this area. But I also want to say this, I usually make the most money when I go all in. If I'm allowing myself to be like, well, this is comfortable and I don't want to fully, there's something about this, again, this idea of not having a plan B that
Mm.
forces you to rise to the occasion. And I have a little bulletin board here that I look at every day on my kitchen shelf that says, fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I think when we face our fears and rise to the occasion of that next version of ourselves, only good things can happen, because again, it's not a failure if you learn. And maybe that next thing is like a byproduct of the failure. Like, maybe it
Right.
takes 2 or 3 ideas before you actually land on the thing that you're going to want to do. So it's
Right.
okay to be in process and hold space for that messy middle.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I've heard you say on more than one occasion, and I've heard Mel Robbins say something similar about the fact that you're not starting over at zero. Like each thing that you've learned and that you're doing is like layering on top of it, so you still bring travel blogging, your travel blogging skills, your graphic skills, your marketing skill, like it's all building on each other, right? So
Yeah. And that's what makes a business even more unique, because if someone was just in one lane and only doing that thing, it's okay. Someone can be educated in the same thing and they can be competitors, but no one will ever be my competition, because I have over a decade of travel, over 2 decades of marketing and social media, like all of these things compounding, the compounding interests and skill sets. If you want to do what I've done, you'd have to invest 20 years. Like,
mhm.
so it's like using everything that you've done in the past and not like disregarding it, because it's like, no, this new version of me no longer needs, you know, I don't know, speaking skills or consulting skills. It's like, no, bring the consulting into this next business idea, because
Right.
someone else who wants to do the same business you're doing doesn't have that consulting experience. So it automatically elevates you.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about your latest direction and your latest passion and mission. We're moving in the direction of love. So I'd love to share a little bit about what's happening there.
Love. Oh my gosh. And I'm excited for just to chat more about, like, even going from female empowerment and just being a very vocal, being very vocal about, like, you can do it on your own and you can be okay being alone. But it's interesting because all the things that I'm doing and experiencing, I never planned. And that's what makes it so I think a bit surreal, but also exciting and adventurous, because I never opted into a 10-year plan. Even to this day, if someone were like, okay, in 10 years, what will all this become? I'm like, let's see. Let's give it 10 years and see.
Hmm.
Because I think if you overplan your destiny, you don't leave room for adventure or changing your mind. So I always was someone that said no one would ever know my love life. The day I got married, I would post literally a wedding photo and that would be it. Like that, they wouldn't even know about the boyfriend stage or the engagement. It would just be, I'm married. All right, back to regularly scheduled program, because it was too vulnerable for people to see me struggle at something I couldn't guarantee success in. I'll say that again. I was like, I put a lot of my ego and identity and comfort in knowing that I was only showing things that I was really good at, that I had a proven track record of, that I had built the confidence in. I was not confident in love. Therefore, you would never see it. And then I did so much work offline and behind the scenes that I was like, you know what? I feel good, but I'm still not fully confident. And I think there's a narrative for women just like me too, who are ready for love or who never thought they would find love. And finally, they're allowing they're opening up their heart and allowing themselves to experience, I think there's a missing narrative in this like dating conversation. And when I was looking for that voice to find comfort in what I was experiencing, I couldn't find it. So just like any other entrepreneur, if you can't find something, be the voice and create it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were very intentional about how you approached it and just being open to it. Can you speak a little bit to that, sort of how you intentionally opened yourself up for it?
Yeah, so it goes back to, I think, these three elements. First, alignment, next, availability, and then attraction. I think
Mm-hmm.
in the past, I always led with like, who am I attracted to or who's attracted to me? And put attraction at such a high, I don't know, you put it on a pedestal, like looks fade, things happen. And I remember when I had my ovarian cystectomy in 2019, I now have this massive scar on my stomach. I was like, no man would find that attractive. And that really took a hit on my self-esteem. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy. I'm not this. I'm not all the other women have perfect stomachs. Like who would date me with this large cut up scar and all of these staples that have been extracted? I just felt so ick. And I had to go on
Mm-hmm.
this like deep self-love journey of no, I'm still worthy. This scar is now, it's a beauty mark. And I know beauty marks have they're the little black dot, but I'm like, this is now a beauty mark. This is
Mm-hmm.
a mark of my own signature of beauty. And I don't have to be beautiful like them when I could be beautiful like me. And I had to allow myself to stop being in this media whirlwind of one brand of beauty that were constantly shoved in movies and shows on Instagram even. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, Glo, create your own brand of beauty and allow yourself to lead with that. So all of your quirks, all of the randomness, all of the things that you think that men find unattractive, like start to lead with that. And I think that that really helped with just my own confidence and self-esteem. And then I would also say that not being afraid to approach men or make the first move or send the first message if someone's using a dating app. Because if we wait on what we receive, it'll be like, oh, what do they really want? And no, not my type. And it's like we're almost on the defense. Like, what are you after? And it's like our guards are up. But if you only allow yourself to talk to men that you are interested in, and whatever, you know, there could be an element of attraction there, but it's like, oh, this person seems like a nice guy. Let me make the first move. You have a better chance at having a better experience and a better conversation because you're already interested. And so much of the time, women, we're like, oh, what are their intentions? Oh, he's creepy. And we're always having like a negative first line of someone's approach.
Right.
And I'll be very honest, when I started to have more conscious conversations with my friends, my male friends who were either single or newly married, I was like, yeah, I'm like just curious. Tell me more. Like, what's in your brains? How is this working? And they were like, you know what, Glo, to be honest, we get rejected so much as men because women don't trust us. And women have this idea that we're all after sex and we're all after one thing. And so we stop going after anything that has a potential to make us feel rejected. And so women, if we have our guards up in public, if we are looking a certain way, if we're not open to like receiving their advances, they won't make an advance.
Right.
And I realized I had this like this resting bitch face, but also I was like I was not interested. If anyone approached me in a cafe, I'm like, leave me alone. I have this book and this book is
Right.
all I want. And
Yeah.
so changing my energy when I was in public, but then also realizing, oh, guys are tired of being rejected. They have 10, 20, 30 years of rejection that they're literally building on top of each other. It's not just the one woman that rejected them last week. It's all the rejections they've experienced since they were 13. So it's like the older we get, the more we have to empathize with men not wanting to be rejected anymore and just being okay with approaching them.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I hadn't heard it articulated in quite that way. And it does, I don't blame them for not approaching.
Yeah.
First of all, I have a tendency to bring my introvert out when I'm it's like you got your little wall around you, right?
Yeah.
So I can't blame them for not approaching in those circumstances, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's tough.
well, I shared with you when we met that I initially had a negative response to your pivot
Yeah.
because I had been following you for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and you're a role model of mine. I wanted to you emulate the life that I aspire to, And when you made your pivot and you announced your love and you announced your new focus for your business, I had a few, it didn't last very long, but at first I was like, oh, I was disappointed. Like I was like, oh, so now she's not speaking to me anymore.
Yes, that's
And,
good.
but it only lasted, it didn't last long, like I said, because I had like a little conversation with myself because I was like, well, it's never that I've been opposed to love and I've never been opposed to having a partner.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, as I was watching how it unfolded for you, I was inspired by your fresh outlook and your energy and your perspective. Because I had gotten to the point where I thought I'd been there, done that, knew it all. I mean, I think I shared with you, I think I was, customer number one on match.com back in the day. So I feel like, I feel like I've done quote all the things, and then I've sort of not been doing anything for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so I find that it's very helpful and refreshing to, like, I basically asked myself, what if I looked at it through Glo's eyes for a minute? Like let's try to look at it through this fresh perspective. How would that look different?
Mm.
And it's really opened me up in that way. So I'm curious for you, like as I share my situation and a little bit about my story, do you have any guidance or thoughts for women like myself who feel like they've been there, done that, could have written a book about it, and or they feel like, oh, there's no good men out there.
Yeah.
The whole giving up piece. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
First and foremost, I just again want to honor and thank you for that like honesty and that level of transparency, because I know that wasn't easier to share, but I appreciated it so much and allowed me to empathize with the user and the viewer experience, because as the poster and the creator, I'm just like la 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 in my bubble. And I think it's so important to have this conscious empathy, no matter what season that you're in, for all the other seasons that people could be experiencing and the different perspectives. So it really, I loved it so much, and it was a great moment in exchange that we had when you initially told me. I think about, honestly, I've been on apps. I think the very first time I used an app was 10 years ago, but when I was really getting intentional about dating, it was 2 years ago, like a little bit during the pandemic. I was like, oh, I have all this time now, and I don't actually want to meet anyone because the world shut down. So this is perfect. Like I have an excuse to not actually meet them in person. But I was like, I have to get good at talking to guys, because I've branded my awkwardness as like, with men, I'm just so defensive and I don't trust them. And I just have all of these
Mhm.
preconceptions and these notions of like negative notion, and I was just like,
Mhm.
I can't live this way. There are
Right.
good men out there. And I know that they exist, and I know that they're everywhere. And it's like, just because I haven't had the best luck, or I'm not currently hearing stories of the good men, I can't let that cloud my experience. So the first thing that I told myself is, when I'm going on these dating apps, I have to allow myself, like, there's something that I call first week energy and second week energy. You have to like when you re-download the apps and you have this new inspired hope. You're like, okay, I'm ready to find love and I'm open. You're a little bit more gracious and compassionate. And maybe that, hey, how's your day going? By the second month, that's annoying and triggering. Like, oh my God, ask me a real question. But at first, you're like, oh, day's going great. Da, 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 da. And you allow yourself to just engage. That's the
Mhm.
first and second week of an app. The key is matching with someone who's also in their first or second week. Because when you have that like jaded, negative, triggered energy of, oh my gosh, send me a real message. Oh, this app isn't filled out. What kind of photos are these? Oh my God, men suck and they never take time. That will not bring you good energy, and that you won't match with like people. Even if you do match with someone that's, genuine, you're going to be so triggered by every little thing they do. You're not going to allow an opportunity for a genuine connection to build. So when I started to feel myself being in that mode of, oh, men suck and none of them know how to spell, and what the hell is English grammar anymore? Just, so I'm like, okay, Glo, get off the apps. Like,
Yeah, it's time
I'm
to pause.
ugly. And then when I would be in a season where I'm like, okay, I'm listening to jazz music and I'm watching healthy shows and I'm surrounding myself with healthy people, then what I would start to do is I would light my little electronic fireplace. I'd get in a silk robe. I'd light my candles. I'd play classical music. I'd dim the lights. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to install the apps again. And I would almost create this environment that was inviting love, but also allowing myself to enjoy the experience. I wanted to open the apps and feel like, ooh, I might find someone today. I might engage in a really beautiful conversation. And I remember the very first guy that I actually ended up meeting when I was on that journey of intentional dating. Our first date is we went to a bookstore and we picked out books for each other. And then we sat in a table across from each other, read the book for 15 minutes, and then gave each other summaries of the book.
I love it. That's a perfect date for you.
My nerd heart was like, oh, they exist. Men like me exist. Like I felt so excited and inspired and expanded by the idea that I could be a full-on geek and someone would be attracted to that brand of geek. And I think holding space for the paradox of like this, badass entrepreneur, this public facing content creator, but also this really socially anxious and awkward, shy introvert who rather stays home and read a book on a weekend. Like, I was like, will I make sense to men? Like I have all of these identities. Will they understand that I actually don't want to go out? I just like, unless we're traveling to a country and exploring, I'd rather stay home and read and curl up to a great documentary and learn about what's going on in Bhutan. Like just like I felt so like weird about having all of these intricacies about me. But yeah, once I started allowing myself to like match with first and second week energy, I would bring in that great energy with someone else as well.
So you were inspired to share your experience with others. Was there anything specific that happened that, I mean, you went from, I'm not going to share anything about my love life to I'm going to help others. What, anything in particular happened to make you make that switch?
I was falling so in love with myself and this joy, I call it obnoxious joy. I say that a lot, but like, because the word obnoxious feels
not
like
obnoxious.
well, but that's the thing. Like, I just felt offline. I was living this life that was so different from how I was showing up online. And I almost felt like I'm living a lie and I'm not being authentic. That word is so overused, but it really felt authentic for me to share what was genuinely bringing me so much joy offline.
Right.
And I felt like, okay, we're entering our 4th month and I've enjoyed sharing him with just like family and friends. And just, it was fun to have those first 4 months for just us. And yeah, I was like, okay, but I'm now having to change how I show up to hide him. And now I can't post a lot of what I'm creating because he's in it. And it was more stressful to hide him than it was to just share who he was. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw up a photo, get it over with, and just liberate myself because now I feel caged in this place of hiding, So I'm just like, let me just share who he is and, what's happened and then go back to whatever. And there were so many of my friends, especially the successful friends, that highly ambitious overachievers that reached out privately and they were like, Glo, this is the one area I would throw away or trade or give all of my business success away if I could find what you have. And that humbled me so much because I was like, whoa, this is love truly is that one thing that's like, what's the magic formula? How do you get it? Like, it's the thing that feels so elusive that it's only reserved for like the elite few. And I always felt that I would be one of those people that, you know what, maybe my mission in this world is to show women you can live fulfilled by yourself. And I accepted that. And I was like, I was okay with that. And so for something on the extreme opposite side to happen, I was like, okay, but maybe I'm also supposed to share hope. And maybe I'm also supposed to show how I did it. And just, yeah, it almost kind of like unfolded in real time. I had no idea how long I would keep sharing, but the more I shared, the more people hit me up like, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're giving me hope. I re-downloaded the apps. I needed this. I'm so grateful for your, like, and I was like, okay, this is confirmation, I think. And I just kind of kept going, I guess.
Great. Yeah, I think there's beauty in both, right? There's beauty in showing the empowerment of being happy and fulfilled on your own, and there's the beauty in being open to that partnership and that love and completely different experience as well, you know? So I'm glad you made you're making that journey, and I'm enjoying watching the joy and your love and the celebration of it. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Uh, I saw something posted recently that kind of reminded me of this. It was somebody had posted about love, and they posted that it was a message to high achieving women. It said
Mm.
the same traits and skills that have made you successful and achieve are the same things that are keeping you single. And I had like a what kind of
Oh,
reaction to
wow. It's an interesting statement. Okay, say more.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I had a very reactive reaction to that because again, it was sort of, I felt like shamed, you know, like,
Mm.
oh, you're a strong, successful woman, and that's why you're single. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because you mentioned that you have a lot of very high achieving friends and people in your circle that were reaching out and relating to what you were going through. I'm curious your thoughts on that particular line of thinking.
Yeah, I think there's a level of when you're ambitious and when you're used to figuring things out and you're a go-getter, like you don't wait on permission. You don't wait on people to approve your idea. You launch it. You don't wait on things. And so you allow yourself to be proactive. And there's a level of, I think, I have many thoughts that I want to say about this. Like one, it's a very convicting statement. I don't know if all of it's true. I will say that a lot of the reason that I thought I was single for so long was because I wasn't super feminine. I'm like, I don't like to cook. I don't wear dainty dresses all the time. I thought that was keeping me single. I thought men wanted this one brand of like femininity.
Mhm.
And I think when it comes to ambition and when it comes to allowing ourselves to tap into another side of ourselves, we can't be like, I'm not in like, I post online, but I'm not like entrepreneur glow, highly ambitious, go-getter 24/7. Like that would be really exhausting. And I think what the quote is maybe more so saying is the qualities that you use for your business aren't what's needed in a relationship. There is a lot of delicacy. There is vulnerability,
Yeah.
transparency, honesty, emotion. Like there's these like soft skills
The
that,
softness.
yeah, that's more needed
Mhm.
in being in a relationship. And I think like I would have conversations right now with my partner and I'm like, wow, I don't think I've even like I was opening up to him in a way that I didn't even open up to my family with. He allowed me to explore a side of me that I never needed to tap into because you don't need it in business or you don't need it to survive in this world. And so I think there's something to be said about allowing different parts of you to unravel and unfold in a relationship. And it might feel foreign because you're like, why am I getting emotional about this? And why am I crying? And what's all of this? I thought I healed from that. Like, but
Right.
there's a there's something, entrepreneurs are very like headstrong and we don't rely on external opinions. We don't need to be validated. But in relationships, it's like you're co-creating something and you do need to ebb and flow with the emotions and the humanity of another person. And yeah, it's a dance. It's a dance.
Yeah.
The two can be
Yeah.
true, but yeah, that quote doesn't feel
Yeah.
good though.
Well, the way that you frame it is perfect, and that's I think that might have been the spirit of what was intended. I wish it had been worded that way. So the way that you framed is perfect. So
Yeah.
as we wrap, I'd love to hear what's coming up, what's next, what's going on for Glo.
Yeah, I'm so, so, so excited. My partner and I, we launched the Life Leap earlier this week, and we're really, really, I think, just we have many obsessions together. We have our quirks, we have our curiosities, but when we were ideating 6 months ago about like, okay, what do we build together? Because we're child-free by choice. And so instead of having a physical baby, we wanted to birth a digital baby and work on something that would allow us to continue to grow and expand and evolve who we were individually. And so he is so good at like strategy, organization, structures, pitching, agencies, like archetype, like he has this a range of skills that I'm like, wait, how did you do that? What's that? What's that? Whereas I'm on the side of like, I can empower and create and coach and market and storytell. And so when you put that together, you have two people that individually figured out how to chase time, financial, and location freedom. And now together sharing how we both want that for other people. And the thing is, we don't expect everyone to want location freedom or time freedom, or, I think everyone mostly wants financial freedom.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like allowing people to choose their adventure. Like, what's the first freedom you're chasing? For me, it was location freedom. Once I achieved that, now I was like, how do I monetize and stay on the road? Then it was financial freedom. And I had these 17 revenue streams. And then that became exhausting. And so I chased time freedom last because I wanted to buy back my time and spend it how I wanted. And time freedom by far was the most fulfilling type of freedom that I experienced. So allowing people to go on that journey, whatever it looks like for them. And yeah, it just feels really good to bring together both an interactive experience on Zoom, but also a very well-structured pre-recorded course module, which I haven't done in like 3 years. And I've missed that, being able to like actually sit down, structure my thoughts, script a video, produce it, well edit it, and make it something that feels beautiful to package and ship to the world. So yeah, it feels like really exciting and scary and like,
Yeah.
even putting a meetup as a part of the course, which is something that we don't think anyone else does. And again, just figuring out like, how can we make this something that is so unique from what's currently offered in the marketplace? So that's that. And prematurely, I'll go ahead and share, like, we have the life leap, but we're also working on the love leap. So together, helping people start their love lives. So yeah, it's
I love it. I love it.
really cool. The leap,
Yes.
the leap.
I love the leap. And yeah, I saw the launch this week and I can't wait to see how it plays out. The two of you have a little bit of a yin yang thing going on. So,
Yeah.
and I've been used to learning from you. I'm interested to see his energy and knowledge and wisdom partnered up with you. It's going to be really, really amazing to watch.
Me too. And he's so grounded, but he's also so quirky and witty and sarcastic and wise. Like some of the videos we've shot, like he goes in and out of like his wittiness. And I love it because my quirks are that I misquote people. Like I might get the author right, but I'll get the quote wrong, or I get the quote right and the author wrong. My laugh is really obnoxious. So there's all of these things that made the shooting process so much fun. And so, yeah, it's also going to be an adventure to see how people perceive it. If they enjoy learning from two people at once. We have some solo videos where it's like, okay, this is my lane. Let me just teach this and record this. And then he has his solo videos. And I think the biggest thing that the hurdle that we're trying to overcome is that the accent, making sure people, like, we have captions in the videos to make sure like what he's saying is understood. Even though he speaks English great. He's been speaking English for 2 decades. So yeah, but he speaks so many languages. So I can't imagine trying to teach in Spanish. Like, even though I'm proficient in it, I would have like my moments of like, what's the word? So that was probably the thing that we had to work the hardest on. But yeah, he's growing so much through the process. And yeah, it's just, we feel really good.
Well, the two of you are very fun to watch, and you're very funny together too. So even as you're teaching us, you're definitely entertaining us as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes so people can find out more about the leap and also about your dating guide. I'll link to where they can find the dating guide, which I got the dating guide 2.0. Love it. It's fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any final thoughts or comments as we wrap up today?
Of course. Well, Amy, thank you again for having me. This conversation, it's like therapy for me. Like, it was so therapeutic. And that's why I was so excited to record it, because I just knew that it would be so expansive. And I love talking through how I'm feeling and what I'm currently working on and going through. And to any fellow blueprint breakers out there that are maybe struggling with just the fear and the anxiety and the overwhelm of taking that step in a new direction, or wanting to disappoint other people so that you can actually be happy with your choices. I mean, there is something about the weight of regret. It will always be heavier than the weight of disappointment. So disappoint other people always. Glennon Doyle says it, like, if you have to choose between two people, always disappoint the other person. And so that weight of regret, you'll live a much more free life if you don't carry that weight of regret into every birthday, into every season of your life. Like, allow yourself to go for it, even if you don't have the answers. Because the best thing that can happen is that you're writing a new, beautiful chapter in real time and people get to watch.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Glo. And thank you for pouring into us today. I so appreciate your time. And yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
Of course, Amy, my pleasure.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of the Blueprint Breakers podcast. Get ready for a glow up. And a huge, huge heartfelt thank you to today's guest, Glo Atanmo. If you listen to this podcast and you didn't watch it, I invite you to go to the Blueprint Breakers YouTube channel and watch it to get the full experience of Glo's energy and light. You have to see her. So visit our YouTube channel and to check out this episode. I would like to quickly share my disclaimer. I'm not a therapist, doctor, lawyer, financial advisor, or love counselor. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. I encourage you to take what I share here as a launching point to discover what is right for you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. And thank you for sharing this episode with your friends. Remember to sign up, get all the details on our month-long launch party. Get the links, the giveaways, sign up, community.blueprintbreakers.com.